of Man must undergo great suffering, and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." And he called the crowd with his disciples, and he said to them, "If anyone wants to become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake, and for the sake of the gospel, will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generations, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed, when he comes in glory of his Father with the holy angels." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
As we said before the service started, Prophet Isaiah, "My ways are not your ways, says God, nor are the way I think the way you think. Because just as the heavens are high above the earth, my ways are above your ways, and my thoughts are above your thoughts, and it's a darn good thing that this is true." Because in the Gospel of Mark, just because we're used to hearing this story and have heard it over and over, it has to be that Isaiah was true, because I can't imagine any of the disciples believing anything that Jesus had to say in the reading of Mark this morning. And indeed, it is Peter who turns to him and says, "This isn't going to happen." He teaches them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering, be rejected, be killed, 3 days rise again. And Peter says, "You've got to be crazy. This is not what we had in mind. We've watched you. We know who you are. We've watched you heal people. We've watched you argue with scribes and Pharisees. You always seem to win. Crowds follow you everywhere. The concept of you suffering, rejected, killed, resurrected isn't what we have in mind." So in Isaiah, God says, "My ways are above your ways, and my ideas are above your ideas." Doesn't get any worse than this. Peter, who would become the leader of the Christian church, he is turned to by Jesus, and look at this, "Get behind me, Satan." Doesn't get lower than that, does it? Can you think of anything worse than a curse like, "You are Satan"? I don't think so. But he emphasizes the fact that your idea isn't God's idea. And so he calls the crowds and his disciples and he says to them, "Oh, by the way, if you do want to follow me, then you're going to have to deny yourself, take up your own cross, and follow me." Not exactly what I had in mind, no sirree, say the people. We like miracles, though. We really do. We like what you have to say. We like how you put down the scribes and Pharisees, because they always seem to be putting us down. So we rather enjoy it when you do that, yes? But, pick up a cross. I don't think so. But a cross? Are you talking about the very death machine that Rome has invented that kills people? We've seen it happen. We've seen the destruction. We know how they kill us, how they hang us up there as examples so everybody can see this could be you. No. Cross doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. It just doesn't. And then he says, "For those who want to save their life, they're going to lose it. The harder you try to save it, the faster you're going to lose it." Total contradiction, but of course that's what the gospel does, doesn't it? "And those who lose life for my sake will gain it." Every one of these statements here are some type of contradiction of the normalcy that we want to say that life is about. Our expectations are kind of patterned, aren't they? If you do this, then this will happen. Have you been a good boy before Christmas? Yes, sir, I have. Then you can expect. Did you study hard? Then you can expect. You obey traffic laws, then you can expect not to get a ticket. We all have our expectations, don't we, of how life is run. And yet over and over in this tiny little text of gospel says that God doesn't always run in the way we would like him to run. And right back to Isaiah, it seems to be true that his ways are above our ways and his thoughts are above our thoughts. And getting in tune with that type of thinking that Jesus is expressing right out of Isaiah is something that we all have to work very hard at, because we do have expectations, do we not? But the real question here is, what are you expecting? I mean, as we walk along here in Lent and we hear these stories of Jesus, and it keeps getting closer and closer to the reality of what's going to happen, and it gets closer to Jerusalem, and we think to ourselves, couldn't it have been done some other way? Couldn't it have been, I don't know, less messy, less deathy, less bloody? Couldn't it have been a better way? I mean, God is God, isn't he? Can God do what God wants to do? Does it have to be this way? But then, if you look at history and you see what happens in the world, and you see the world's wars, and you see what's going on even today, I mean, I can't turn on the television without some news about ISIS and what's going to happen, how they just kill people and how they do it, burning people, beheading Christians, and you say to yourself, the world is a messy place, and there are people out there whose ideals and whose ways of believing in God are so erratic and so foolish and just don't make any sense. But it goes on and on and on and on and on. For every war, there's a repercussion and all. In the Time magazine, I was reading this big article on the whole thing, and what they're saying is, well, what are we going to do about ISIS? How do you find evil? And we debate the whole idea of, do we put boots on the ground? And the American public says no, but at the same time it's beginning to say, well, maybe we ought to. And somebody's going to have to make a decision about that. The Pentagon will advise the president, and the president will have to make a decision, and we have no idea what that decision is going to be, except for the fact that this whole idea of an ideology coming along to kill other people never seems to cease. There's always one that wants to justify itself. And so in the midst of all of that, God says, if you want to know what I can do with death, you take a look at my son. And you take a look at the people he was talking to, and they didn't want to believe him, that somehow his death had to be the ultimate death, to show that despite what you guys are doing down here, I love you more than you can even imagine. And in the death of Jesus is the verification of just what that love is all about. This is not a death of getting even. This is the death of giving life. That's the great mystery of Christianity, isn't it? That in the midst of all the stupidity of how people are put to death, how the Romans hang Jesus on a cross, how people deny him, and we think, couldn't that have been a better way? Maybe there could have been. But this is the one way we do understand, because all through history, somebody wants to kill somebody, with the results being evil. And this would be the first time that somebody got killed with the results being good. My ways are not your ways, says God. My thoughts are not your thoughts. And just as the heavens are exalted above the earth, my thoughts are above your thoughts, my ways above your thoughts. And if you don't believe this is true, stick around, says God, through the season of Lent, and follow Jesus and see where he goes, and see what kind of death brings life instead of death itself. And this is our journey, as well as every Christian church, to listen to gospels like this and say, sometimes I got to get out of my own way and let God be God, and let Christ be Christ, let love be love.